The doctor said Karen had 6 weeks. She lasted 11. The bills lasted a lot longer. I was still writing checks when they fired me. 10 days before my $55,000 bonus hit. My name's Russell Pemberton. Most people call me Russ. I'm 52 years old, and that morning in the conference room wasn't how I thought my career at Titan Systems Group would end. 8 years of 12-hour days and sacrificed weekends, gone in a 10-minute meeting. I'm sorry, Russ, but effective immediately, your position is being eliminated. That's what Jeanette Marsh said. No eye contact, just click, 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 with her pen, like she was checking off a grocery list. Milk, eggs, guy's entire career. Brandon Caldwell sat across from me with this little smirk. His tie was crooked. This guy couldn't even dress himself properly, but somehow he was deciding my fate. He was 42, MBA from somewhere expensive, all theory and no field experience. Corporate restructuring, Brandon said, like those 2 words explained everything. I'd closed a $52 million government contract 3 weeks earlier, Project Sentinel, classified Department of Defense work that I'd spent 6 months negotiating using contacts I'd built over 20 years in the defense sector. And now Brandon was restructuring me right out the door, 10 days before quarterly bonuses. That timing wasn't an accident. No severance? I asked. My voice came out flat, old training kicking in. Never let them see you rattled. Standard package, Jeanette chirped. 3 weeks and a positive reference, assuming no complications. I stood up and grabbed my bag, walked out through an office full of people suddenly fascinated by their computer screens. Nobody makes eye contact when you're the one getting axed. My desk looked smaller than I remembered. I started boxing up 8 years of my life. Photo of Karen from before the cancer. Coffee mug that said world's okayest boss. My team gave me that after we closed Sentinel. Just swept it all into the cardboard box. The elevator ride down was long. I made it to my truck before the anger hit. Not the hot kind. The cold kind that sits in your chest like a stone. Karen died 3 months ago. The cancer moved fast. Hospital stays, specialists, hospice care. The final tally came to just under $400,000. Insurance covered some. Not enough. I'd been paying minimums, stretching it out month by month, waiting for bonus season. That $55,000 was supposed to make a real dent. Now I had nothing. 3 weeks severance that wouldn't cover a month's worth of medical debt. I didn't think about the contract until that night. I was 2 bourbons deep, sitting in my home office staring at Karen's empty chair. The house felt bigger without her, quieter. That's when I remembered the safe. Not some desk drawer. The fireproof safe in my closet where I kept the important documents. Birth certificates, insurance policies, the deed. And my original employment contract from 2017, I pulled it out, still in its envelope, still had the Titan Systems letterhead from back when Lawrence Holbrook was CEO, back when the company was run by people who valued loyalty. I unfolded it slowly, read through the legal language line by line. Page 7, Section 14B, buried under a paragraph about termination conditions. If employee is terminated without cause, he shall be entitled to 12% of company net quarterly profit in the quarter of termination, in lieu of standard bonus and severance. I read it 3 times. 12%, not of my department's bonus pool. 12% of Titan Systems Group's entire quarterly net profit. I sat back in my chair. The leather creaked. That clause, I'd negotiated it back in 2017 when I brought in my first major government contract. It was supposed to be a retention bonus, a golden handcuff. The old CEO understood that relationships in the defense sector are everything. You need credibility. You need history. Brandon never read the contract. Why would he? The guy probably couldn't spell due diligence if you spotted him half the letters. I pulled up my email and searched for anything from Troy Garrison. Troy was an old Army buddy who worked as a senior engineer at Titan. We'd served together back in the day. Found what I was looking for. An email from a month ago where he'd accidentally copied me on an internal Q3 forecast. The forecast showed projected net profit for Q3, $42.3 million. The Sentinel contract I'd closed would hit the books this quarter. Defense work, high margins, minimal overhead. I opened the calculator app on my phone. $42.3 million times 0.12, $5,076,000. I stared at that number for a solid minute. Set down my bourbon because my hands needed to be steady. That wasn't a bonus. That was generational money. That was every medical bill Karen left behind, paid in full. That was the house fixed, the truck replaced, and enough left over to actually breathe. And Brandon thought he was screwing me over. I laughed. Couldn't help it. Karen's chair was empty, the bills were stacked on the counter, and these corporate idiots had just handed me a winning lottery ticket. They'd fired me without cause. Their own words, position elimination, and triggered a clause they didn't know existed. But here's the thing about corporate types like Brandon. They don't just lie once. They lie systematically. They'll build a paper trail, fabricate warnings, twist emails, maybe even forge some performance reviews. Anything to convert a without cause termination into a for-cause firing, which meant I needed to move fast. I picked up my phone and pulled up Troy's number, hesitated for just a second. What I was about to do would put him at risk. Asking a guy who still worked there to help me gather evidence, that's not a small favor. But then I thought about Dorothy Brenner. She'd been with Titan for 25 years working in finance. Word around the office was they'd fired her the same week as me. No warning, no explanation, just restructuring. Brandon wasn't restructuring. He was scrubbing the books, cutting high salary positions right before bonus season so the executive pool looked bigger. I typed out the message to Troy. Need to talk, in person, soon as you can. His response came back in under a minute. Tomorrow, Capitol Grill, 7 p.m. I set down the phone and looked at the contract again. Section 14B, 12 perfect percent. This wasn't about revenge, not yet anyway. This was about accountability. This was about making sure Brandon learned that loyalty isn't just some word you put in a mission statement. It's a contract, and contracts have teeth. I poured another bourbon, just one finger. Needed to stay sharp. Those habits kept me alive overseas, and they were about to keep me solvent here. Brandon made one critical mistake. He underestimated the one person in that company who actually read the fine print. Tomorrow, I'd start building the case. Tonight, I just sat in my office with the contract spread out on my desk and let myself feel something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. Cold, calculated, and ready for war. Monday morning, I walked into Hugh Callahan's office. If Brandon wanted lawyers, I'd bring a JAG officer who'd seen worse than him. The place smelled like burnt coffee and old law books. Hugh was 62, ex-military lawyer, the kind of attorney who'd prosecuted war crimes and defended good soldiers from bad charges. His office was downtown D.C., fourth floor walk-up, no receptionist. He was already at his desk when I walked in, didn't look up, just pointed at the chair. Russ Pemberton, Troy called ahead, said you got screwed. That's the polite version. Hugh took my contract and started reading, no small talk, just straight to the work. After 3 minutes, he set it down and tapped Section 14B. This clause is ironclad, 12% of quarterly net profit if terminated without cause. Back when we had a CEO who respected what people brought to the table. Here's your problem. Hugh leaned back. They'll never admit it was without cause. Expect forged performance reviews, fabricated warnings, creative reinterpretation of your work history. So what's our move? We go proactive. Pull every email where leadership praised your work, client testimonials, anything proving you were an asset. Make it impossible for them to claim you were underperforming. And the real reason they cut me? Hugh's eyes narrowed. Money. They fired you to boost the executive bonus pool. If we can prove they did this to multiple people right before payout, we've got leverage. That evening, I met Troy at the Capitol Grill, back booth where we wouldn't be overheard. He was already nursing a beer when I slid into the seat. They're saying you left voluntarily, Troy said. Told everyone you wanted to pursue other opportunities. Voluntarily? That's creative. Brandon moved into your office the next day. Troy leaned in. Listen, there's stuff you need to know. Brandon's been bragging to the exec team about how lean the numbers look, how much fat he cut before Q3 earnings hit the board. Fat being me and who else? 2 project managers, someone from HR, and Dorothy Brenner from finance. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Dot? She's been there 25 years. I know. They blindsided her the same way. Troy glanced around the restaurant. And Russ, there's more. That Sentinel contract you closed, the $52 million deal, it's hitting the books this quarter. Brandon's already counting it in Q3 projections. The profit margin is obscene. So they cut me right after I secured the windfall that's funding their bonuses. Exactly. Deal's still classified. DoD hasn't announced it publicly, but internally, Brandon's already celebrating. The pieces were falling into place. This wasn't restructuring. This was calculated theft. Can you get me proof? Emails, meeting notes, internal projections? Troy was quiet for a moment. I can forward what I can from a personal account, but I've got to be careful. I know. I'm not asking you to fall on a sword. There's one more thing. Troy pulled out his phone. I still have management-level permissions. They forgot to revoke my access when they passed me over for promotion last year. I've been acting as senior engineer for 2 years without the title or the pay. I looked at the screen. He had access to the executive shared drive. They forgot. People like Brandon don't think about details. Troy put his phone away. I'll get you what you need. We paid separately and left through different exits. 3 days later, Troy sent me the files through an encrypted email. 4 Word documents, pulled from a folder Brandon had named Exec Private 2. Real genius-level security. I opened the first document, Performance Improvement Plan with my name on it. Dated June 18th. I right-clicked, checked properties. Date created, October 6th, 9:47 a.m. I was fired October 3rd. Second document, Written Warning, dated July 22nd. Date created, October 6th, 10:03 a.m. Third document, Final Performance Review, dated September 28th. Date created, October 6th, 10:15 a.m. All forged, created in a 30-minute span, 3 days after my termination. I called Hugh immediately. I've got them. Metadata proves the documents were fabricated after I was fired. Send them now. This changes everything. The second email contained a spreadsheet. Q3 earnings forecast, internal use only. Every major contract closed that quarter, including Project Sentinel, still marked classified. Bottom line, $42.3 million projected net profit. My calculation had been right. 12% of that was $576,000. Then I opened the third attachment. Email chain between Brandon Caldwell and Andrea Fielding, Titan's corporate counsel. Subject line, Workforce Optimization Pre-Bonus, dated September 20th, 2 weeks before my termination. Brandon had written, need to reduce headcount by 5 before Q3 closes, targeting high-salary positions. We'll coordinate with HR on timing and documentation. Priority is keeping exec team clean for board review. Andrea's response, understood. Ensure performance documentation is in place before any terminations. We'll need to justify cause if challenged. They'd planned it, put it in writing. The idiot actually put it in writing. I forwarded everything to Hugh with one line, game over. He called back in under 10 minutes. Russ, this isn't a lawsuit anymore. This is a nuclear weapon. If this goes public, it triggers an SEC investigation. The CEO won't let that happen, not over Brandon. Then let's make him choose. That night, Hugh drafted the letter. 1 page, legal letterhead, surgical precision. Per Section 14B of Mr. Pemberton's employment contract, we formally request payment of 12% of Titan Systems Group's net quarterly profit due to his termination without cause. Attached documentation demonstrates fabricated performance records and premeditated workforce reduction to inflate executive compensation. We are prepared to file suit and notify relevant regulatory authorities unless this matter is resolved within 10 business days. The letter went out via certified mail the next morning. I got the signature confirmation 2 days later. Now we waited. 5 days later, a courier showed up at my door. Hand-delivered envelope, thick paper, expensive law firm letterhead. Inside was a settlement offer. One-time payment of $175,000. No admission of wrongdoing. Standard NDA. I called Hugh. They're offering $175,000. That's 3 times your bonus, but nowhere near what the contract says they owe you. I could hear the smile in his voice. They're scared, Russ. What's next? Now we ask for a meeting, face to face. We show them everything we have and we watch them do the math. And if they refuse, they won't. Because the alternative is federal investigators asking why they cooked the books and forged documents. I looked at the settlement offer again, $175,000. Like that was supposed to make me grateful. Brandon thought he could buy his way out of this. He was about to learn that some problems don't disappear. They come with receipts, metadata, and a contract clause that has teeth. 2 days after we rejected their settlement offer, Andrea Fielding called, Titan's corporate counsel. Her voice had that practiced calm lawyers use when they're trying not to sound desperate. "Mr. Pemberton, we'd like to meet, discuss resolution options." "I'm listening." "In person. You, your counsel, our legal team, and Mr. Holbrook." Lawrence Holbrook, the CEO. They were bringing in the top. "Tuesday, 10 a.m., our offices." Hugh nodded when I looked at him. "We'll be there." Tuesday morning, Hugh and I walked into Titan's headquarters. The conference room had that corporate sterile feel. Glass table, leather chairs, bottled water lined up like ammunition. Brandon sat on the far side, wouldn't look at me directly. Kept adjusting his cufflinks, checking his phone, fidgeting like a kid called to the principal's office. Next to him was Lawrence Holbrook, 61 years old, three-piece suit, silver hair, the kind of man who could fire an entire division without raising his voice. Andrea Fielding sat at the head with her laptop. 2 other lawyers flanked her. Young associates with that hungry billable hours look. Hugh sat down next to me, yellow legal pad in front of him. He looked relaxed, like this was just another Tuesday. "Gentlemen," Andrea began, "we appreciate you coming in. We believe there's been some misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding," Hugh's voice cut clean. "Your client fired my client without cause, triggering a contractual obligation, then fabricated documentation to justify that firing. We have proof." Andrea's jaw tightened. "That's a serious accusation." "It's a statement of fact." Hugh slid a flash drive across the table. "May I?" Andrea looked at Holbrook. He nodded once. She plugged in the drive. The screen behind her lit up. Hugh stood, clicked his remote. A Word document appeared. "Performance Improvement Plan dated June 18th. Submitted as evidence Mr. Pemberton was terminated for cause." Click. The metadata panel filled the screen. Date created, October 6th, 9:47 a.m. Mr. Pemberton was terminated October 3rd. This document didn't exist until 3 days later. Click. Another document. Written warning dated July 22nd. Created October 6th, 10:03 a.m. Click. Final review dated September 28th. Created October 6th, 10:15 a.m. The room was dead quiet. All fabricated, all created in a 30-minute window, all backdated. Brandon's face had gone pale. Holbrook's eyes shifted to Brandon like a laser sight. Second item. Hugh pulled up a new file. Sworn affidavit from Dorothy Brenner, former senior finance analyst, 25 years with your company, fired 3 days after she raised concerns about revenue recognition for the Sentinel contract. Holbrook's jaw tightened. Mrs. Brenner flagged accounting irregularities. Deferred income moved into Q3 to artificially inflate quarterly profit before bonus calculations. Hugh clicked again. Original projections and revised projections your CFO ordered. The numbers told the story. Revenue pushed from Q4 into Q3. Made the quarter look $8 million better than reality. Mrs. Brenner tried to escalate, got shut down, then got fired. Hugh raised a hand before Andrea could speak. Third item. Email chain between Mr. Caldwell and your office, Ms. Fielding, dated September 20th. The email appeared on screen. Brandon's words. Need to reduce headcount by 5 before Q3 closes, targeting high-salary positions. Andrea's response. Ensure performance documentation is in place before any terminations. Hugh let that sit. Let them read it, let them understand. So let's summarize. Hugh turned to face Holbrook. Mr. Pemberton secured a $52 million classified contract that inflated your quarterly profit. Then he was fired without cause. Then documents were forged. Then a financial analyst was fired for questioning the accounting. Manipulation. He paused. We have testimony from 4 other employees. We have more emails. We have server logs. Holbrook stared at the screen, then turned slowly toward Brandon. Brandon, step outside. Sir, I can explain. Step outside. Brandon stood so fast his chair rolled backward. He grabbed his phone, fumbled it, nearly dropped it, then practically ran for the door. The silence was beautiful. Holbrook turned back. Ms. Fielding, clear the room. Andrea started gathering her laptop. Not you, Holbrook said to Hugh. You stay. The other lawyers filed out. Andrea went last, closing the door with a soft click. Just 4 of us now. Me, Hugh, Holbrook, and the wreckage of Brandon's career spread across a PowerPoint. Holbrook folded his hands. "Mr. Pemberton, you're not here to burn the building down. You're here to get paid." I met his eyes. "That's correct." "And you," he looked at Hugh, "are here to make sure I understand the alternative is federal investigators." Hugh smiled, didn't say a word. Holbrook reached into his jacket and pulled out a folder. Thin, already prepared, he slid it across the table. Full 12% based on actual quarterly profit. Final audit came in at $42.566 million. That's $5,107,920. Wire transfer within 3 business days of signature. Hugh opened the folder, started reading. His face stayed neutral, which meant the numbers were real. "NDA?" I asked. "Standard confidentiality. You don't discuss the settlement or circumstances with press, competitors, or future employers." "And Brandon?" "Terminated effective immediately. Breach of internal conduct policy." I tapped the folder. 2 conditions. Holbrook waited. 1. Dorothy Brenner gets a consulting agreement, $400,000. Holbrook's eyes narrowed slightly. "Done." 2. Troy Garrison gets promoted to senior engineer, title and pay. He's been doing the work for 2 years. You're protecting your people. I'm making sure you remember what loyalty looks like. Holbrook was quiet, then nodded. "Agreed. Paperwork finalized by end of business today." He stood, extended his hand. I stood and shook it. His grip was firm, dry, emotionless. "One more thing," Holbrook said as we reached the door. "We'd like you to consider returning. Senior Vice President, significant compensation." I looked at him, at his expensive suit and corner office empire. "I appreciate the offer," I said, "but I'm done working for people who need lawyers to teach them ethics." Hugh and I walked out of Titan Systems Group for the last time. Outside, the October air was cold and clean. Traffic moved past. The world kept turning. "You could have asked for more," Hugh said. "I asked for what was mine, plus a little accountability." We shook hands on the sidewalk. My phone buzzed before I made it to the parking garage. Text from Troy. "Did you just get me promoted?" I typed back, "You earned it 3 years ago." 3 business days later, the wire hit my account. $5,107,920. I stared at the number until my vision blurred. Then I logged into the hospital billing portal. Karen's balance, 0 towers. Paid in full. Mortgage, $0. Car loan, $0. Every piece of financial weight I'd been carrying for a year. Gone. The first thing I did after the wire cleared was call Brenner. She picked up on the 3rd ring, sounding tired in the way people sound when unemployment stretches into its 2nd month. "It's Russ Pemberton." "Russ, I heard you were fighting them. How'd it go?" "Check your email. Should have hit about an hour ago." I heard her mouse clicking, then silence. Then her breath caught. "This says $400,000. Consulting agreement. That's what it says." "I don't understand." "You stood up when it mattered. You kept records when they told you to look the other way. 25 years, They owed you more than a cardboard box." Her voice was thick when she spoke again. "Nobody's ever done something like that for me. We look out for our own. That's how it works." Troy called that afternoon. Senior engineer. Official title, $40,000 raise. Equity package. What did you threaten them with? Just reminded them what their fraud case would look like in federal court. "Man," he laughed. "I've been acting senior engineer for 2 years, like it wasn't real work." "It was real. They just didn't want to pay you for it." "Well, they're paying now. Thanks, Russ. For real." After we hung up, I sat in my home office. Karen's chair was still across from me, empty like it had been for 3 months. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. I poured 2 fingers of bourbon and just held the glass. Let myself feel the weight of the past month. The anger, the cold calculation, the satisfaction of watching Brandon's career implode. It felt good, not great, just good, like finishing a mission that needed finishing. 2 weeks later, Brandon's resignation was announced on LinkedIn. Pursuing other opportunities, the post said. His profile went dark the same day. No farewell post, no inspirational quotes, just gone. Word travels fast in the defense sector. Within a week, 3 different people I'd worked with reached out, casual messages. Heard what happened at Titan, glad you landed on your feet. Nobody said it directly, but the subtext was clear. They knew Brandon was poisoned now. The thing about the defense industry is it's smaller than people think. Government contracts, security clearances, Pentagon relationships. It's a tight circle. Guys like Brandon don't get second chances when the story is he cooked the books to screw over the guy who'd just landed a $52 million classified deal. His career was over. Not just at Titan. Everywhere that mattered. 3 weeks after the settlement, I got a call from a defense consultancy out of Arlington. Small firm, veteran-owned, good reputation. We're not looking for someone to work 80-hour weeks, the owner said. His name was Paul Rivera, former Marine colonel. We're looking for someone who knows how to build relationships with DoD brass. Someone who understands government contracts are about trust, not PowerPoint decks. Part-time? Your terms. We bill you out as senior advisor. You help us close deals, mentor younger guys, teach them how to do this work the right way. I started the following Monday. 3 days a week, my own hours, advising on strategy and making calls to people I'd known for 20 years. Clean work, honest work. The money from Titan sat in investments, most of it anyway. I kept enough to fix the foundation, replace the truck, and set up something I'd been thinking about since Karen died. The Karen Pemberton Fund for Cancer Research. Not huge, not flashy, just $50,000 a year going to a research hospital in Baltimore that specialized in the kind of cancer that took her. They put her name on a plaque in the research wing. I went to see it once. Stood there for a few minutes, reading her name in brushed steel letters. Karen Elizabeth Pemberton, 1973-2025. I didn't cry, just felt tired and old and glad she didn't have to see what I'd become in those months. Cold, calculating, the kind of person who could systematically dismantle another man's career and sleep fine, but I think she would have understood. Karen always said I had a strong sense of right and wrong. 4 months later, I got an email from someone I didn't know. Subject line, "Thank you." The sender was Jennifer Pace. The message was short. "Mr. Pemberton, I worked at Titan until last year. I was one of the people they let go in a previous restructuring. I always suspected they'd forged my performance reviews, but I didn't have proof and couldn't afford to fight. When I heard what you did, I wanted you to know it mattered, not just for you, for all of us who got screwed and had to walk away quietly." I read it 3 times, then closed my laptop. That's the thing about fighting back. You think it's just about you, your contract, your money, but then you realize other people were watching. Other people got screwed the same way and thought they had to take it, and maybe by not taking it, you show them they don't have to either. 6 months after I left Titan, I ran into Troy at a conference in Crystal City. He was presenting on secure communication systems, speaking to a room full of government contractors like he'd been doing it his whole career. Afterward, we grabbed coffee. "How's the new position?" I asked. "Good, really good. They're actually listening to my ideas now." That's what happens when the title matches the work. Troy stirred his coffee. "Brandon tried to get a job with one of our competitors last month. They called me for a reference." "Yeah?" I told them the truth, every word of it. They withdrew the offer that afternoon. We sat there for a minute, not saying anything. 2 guys who'd served together, worked together, survived together. "You ever regret it?" Troy asked. I thought about it, really thought about it, about Brandon's career in ruins, about the money in my account, about Karen's name on that plaque, about Dot getting paid, about Troy getting promoted. "No," I said, "I don't." And I meant it. Some nights I still sit in my home office with a bourbon and think about how close I came to just walking away, taking the loss, accepting that sometimes good people get screwed and that's just how the world works. But I didn't walk away. I read the fine print. I gathered the evidence. I brought in the right people, and I made them pay for every lie they told. That's not revenge. That's accountability. Brandon Caldwell gave me a 12% advantage. He just didn't know it, and by the time he figured it out, it was too late. I still work 3 days a week with Paul Rivera's firm, still mentor younger veterans trying to translate military experience into civilian success. The house is quieter now than it was when Karen was here, but it's mine. Paid off. No medical debt crushing me every morning. I sleep better than I have in a year. And every morning, I wake up knowing that Brandon Caldwell doesn't. That's not revenge, that's just math.